So I'm trying to protect my pieces, rook e1, defending here because b4 is no longer hanging, and then my opponent plays f5. Well, let me delete this mark. So yes, the move isn't good, but can you please tell me, guys, what are your candidate moves? So first of all, I kindly recommend you to follow the algorithm. And for example, when you have to take a decision, if the move is not clear for you, but actually every time you're going to make the move, you should do several things. Let's talk about this algorithm while you're thinking about candidate moves here. First, you should ask yourself what your opponent wants with this move. Does this move contain a threat? And if your answer is positive, the move contains a threat, then you should somehow react on this threat and, well, defend your position, counterattack, or do what you think is best. If this move doesn't contain a threat, then you may continue doing your own plan. And if so, you have to consider candidate moves, usually at least 3 candidate moves. Sometimes 2, sometimes 4, sometimes 5. But if you stick to the rule of 3 candidate moves, it will be great. For example, who can tell me which 3 candidate moves we should be analyzing in this position? So they played f5. Well, what natural moves you see?
There's obviously the pawn takes pawn there, right?
So pawn takes pawn is probably the first that comes to people's minds. Yeah, so e takes f5. So here Dan suggests f3 also. Anything else? Okay, so there is also a
Rook,
suggest. Rook.
rook e3.
Rook e3. Well, interesting, but with f5
Dropping a pawn.
they attack the pawn on e4. So with rook e3 you
Yeah.
don't defend it at the very least. So I would say rook e3 is unlikely to be a candidate move, but f3 and e takes f5 are definitely candidate moves. Well, these are defensive moves. And, well, guys, here white is obviously better, right? So why should we look for defensive moves only? Here, if you notice one important thing
Ooh.
about this knight on b7, you
Can we
can
do
also
f4?
yeah, so we can also take advantage of that and instead of defending the position, make f4 move. So you
Yeah.
have 3 candidate moves. Let me explain how you should
Mhm.
calculate them and take your decision. So this. Well, the good point is that the pawn on e4 is no longer hanging, but there is one hanging on h4 and you are
Yeah.
trying to evaluate. So probably you have to play g3 and you allow your opponent to get 3 pawns in the center and potentially he can create some problems for your position here. So that's why e takes f5. Well, if other options are worse, then we have to play this move. F3 move. F3 is more interesting because after f takes e4, you can offer an exchange of the rooks at the very least, or you can take with a pawn and still prevent the d pawn from movement. The disadvantage of such a strategy is that this pawn becomes isolated and potentially easy target. However, f3 looks solid. And f4 move. But f4 move requires a lot of calculations. So this is the moment where you, before making this move, have to consider different options. So once you play f4, you should calculate this. You should calculate this, this, and this. So 4 different options. And before making the move on the board, let's try to do the process I will explain. So f4. Well, the obvious move is e takes f4 because the f4 pawn is not protected. How to react? Our main concept was based on this knight passivity. We wanted to get our rooks to the 7th rank to attack it and trap or just win because of a fork. So e takes f5. We gain a pawn back, open the lines, so he probably has to react with king f6 to not allow our rook to go to e7. And then we can capture another pawn and make a passed pawn. And if the king takes, then the rook goes there. The knight is trapped. So looks like e takes f4 doesn't work. Well, the next move is this. If he plays such a move, we can capture on e5, and d takes e5 still leads to a problem because of rook d7, and he loses a knight. So, of course, he may not capture our pawn on e5, but if so, we are threatening to take the pawn on d6 and make a passed pawn. So looks like it doesn't favor black at all. That's why after f4, maybe they play king f6. Maybe. Okay, then how do we continue? Well, we can take here. And the point is that even if they take with the king, we can capture on e5 and still threaten to play rook d7 once the d pawn captures on e5. If the d pawn doesn't capture, then we threaten to take this d pawn as well. So f4, king f6, we take, probably they take, but then it goes back. I mean, it's the same position that we calculated as the first line. F takes g6, and the king cannot take because it allows our rook to go to e7. Well, the last option that we didn't consider is rook takes e4. Rook takes e4. Well, it doesn't change anything because we can just exchange the rooks. They take, then we take there. How can they play? Maybe they can play e3. If so, rook d3. And if e2, we bring the king, so they cannot promote this pawn. It's completely fine. Once you calculated it and you're ready to make a 4 on the board, ask yourself if there is anything better. Okay, no, looks like there are no better options. And you should also ask yourself if in this main combination, so for example, this is the line you expect, is anything better that you probably didn't see? Is there any intermediate move that you're missing, like a knight move with a tempo which saves the knight and doesn't allow you to succeed with the main idea of this line? No, it doesn't look so. So, and then after you calculated and chose this move, you make this, and probably you expect him to play king f6. This is the main line. So I played f4, and in the game, he took on e4. He took on e4. So let me illustrate quickly the other lines for those who are around 1000. For those who will watch the recording only. So e takes f4, I take there. This is a threat. So white didn't lose a pawn. In case of g takes f6, black loses a knight. If they try to bring the king, then f takes g6. And now if they take, it's rook e7. So take rook e7. The knight is trapped. So what else? King of 6. Then it's basically the same. We can take first, or we can, well, actually, let's take first, because if the king takes, it's this. One more thing, guys. One more thing. During the combination, so let's say you found a very nice combination and you're about to play it. Don't forget to check if there is during while you are starting this combination and you are in the middle, check every time if there is a better continuation for you. This is how you are going to take maximum benefit of this combination. So for example, here originally I wanted to capture there. So if the king takes, I capture there. So the pawn is pinned. But actually, it's better to take there. And if this pawn takes, it's rook d7 immediately. No, the knight cannot go to d8. Well, okay, let me show you. So, but yes, if the king takes, it's this, he takes, and then you play this move. The knight goes to d8, but even on d8, he is in trouble. So he has to play this move, but then just, well, I want to play rook e8, then he has this. No. Okay, so how to play? Let's... Okay, so at the moment the knight cannot escape. Well, maybe we can just play this move, threatening with this. It's still a winning position. We capture the enemy pawns at the very least. So Even just this move wins. Yeah, the knight can go to d8 in one of the lines. True. So that's why this move, rook d7, is better than rook a7. Anyway, f4 works. Yeah, so this line doesn't make much sense. The pawn is pinned and rook d7 is coming. e3 doesn't favor because here the king stops. Am I moving pieces and explaining too fast? If yes, tell me to slow down, because my task is to let you understand everything, at least 80% of what I'm going to explain. Okay.
Victor, I'm gonna say it's a little bit fast, but I think we can just watch the recording and probably watch it a little slower, right? I mean, it doesn't, that
Well, no,
there's no
if you
reason.
don't understand, just let me know what exact line you want me to go through
Okay.
again. I will explain. So, okay, so yeah, I will try to do it a little slower. So f4 was played in the game. It was this move. Then he's in a trouble. King f7, I took there. King e6, d7, knight d8, and then I pushed the other pawn. So he didn't resign until I checkmated him, but he was actually 1900. Which I think is a bit disrespectful to not resign against a 2200 player. But anyway, it's his problem. So let's continue. At least you learned. So what are we doing? Our algorithm is to first ask yourself what your opponent wants to play with the move he plays. What does he want to do next after he played this or that move? And then you are taking decision whether this move contains a threat and you should react immediately, or you may continue your plan. If you think that you may continue your plan, think about your candidate moves. Usually 3, but it can be from 2 to 4 or 5. But even if you only consider 3, this algorithm will help you to take a proper decision in 75% of cases. What else? Before making the move on the board, make sure that you calculate properly. Ask yourself which exact move do you expect your opponent to react, and make sure to check if he has any intermediate moves that you didn't